We'll get started here. Thanks everybody for joining, and welcome to the Mastering Hybrid Networks by Sonar and Preseem. My name is Gerd Nagelhout. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders here at Preseem, and I'd like to introduce you to Thomas Crawford, Regional Sales Director at Sonar.
Pleasure to be here, everyone. Really excited about the new provisioning enhancements and extending the fiber and multi-vendor support. So we're really excited about the opportunity to be in front of you and hope to make a really strong impression today.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So for the webinar today, I'm going to kick us off talking about Preseem a little bit, sort of a high-level overview, benefits, problems it solves, how it can use different teams, benefit different teams in the company, and then Thomas is going to take over on the Preseem side. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A tab. At the end of the webinar, we're going to go through those. There's also a single-page handout in the Handouts tab you can download as well. All right, so super high level, Preseem is all about access network and subscriber management for ISPs. It helps you understand and improve the subscriber quality of experience, as well as increase operational efficiency across different vendors and access technologies, fiber and fixed wireless, of course, being a major focus for us. Um, in terms of benefits, with the quality of experience portion of Preseem, your subscribers will get a vastly better, faster feeling internet, especially when they max out their plan speeds or in congested parts of the network that we're helping to optimize. But beyond that, we also have a ton of data and tools to really empower different teams in your company to use the data we gather and analyze and build from the network in both technical terms and non-technical terms. So on the networking side, for example, your access and core network operations team will use Preseem to figure out where the bottlenecks are, why, what is happening at what level, things like that. Support team tends to use Preseem for any support calls coming in. You can see if they're getting a good experience, put yourself in your customer's shoes, troubleshoot, things like that. And also sales and marketing is more and more using Preseem, things like our capacity data to understand where in the network is there capacity you can sell and add more subscribers to the network, for example. So high level, there's three major parts to Preseem. The Preseem Cloud is where everything comes together. It's all the data is stored there. All the different elements push all the metrics back up to the cloud. There's both data storage and analysis, turning raw metrics into much more usable insights. And this is also where external integrations, such as integrations to Sonar, happen, for example. So the idea is that, we don't want you to have to put all kinds of information in Preseem that Sonar already has. So Sonar knows your subscribers, their plan speeds, IP addresses, OLTs, CPEs, access points, all that stuff. And Preseem simply retrieves all that automatically, so you don't have to provision any of that twice. They're very, closely coupled. And there's also backlinks back and forth between the two systems. Then we have the Preseem elements. I'll go more in detail on all this as well. It's there really to do the QE portion of it. So it both improves the subscriber experience as well as measures the traffic to see exactly where the problem areas are, as well as mitigate capacity issues. And last, we have the Preseem Polar. And the idea here is the inline device tells you a lot about your actual traffic. The Preseem Polar gets all the information about your elements. So your access points, CPEs, OLTs, ONTs. It builds topology, and it also grabs tons of raw data, which is then pushed into a cloud. That data is then analyzed and turned into very simple metrics you can use. That, together with the inline data, provides a really comprehensive overview of what is happening inside the network. So going a little bit deeper on the Preseem elements, this can be one inline device, it can be multiple. We have solutions architects to help you, design the best way to put this in your network. It's not usually very hard. If you have any NAP, you want to be downstream of that. There's a couple of constraints like that, but it's usually fairly straightforward. We're typically fairly high up in the network in your data center. And whether you have one box or five boxes doesn't really matter. It depends on your network. Because of our cloud-based design, everything aggregates up into that anyways. And yeah, again, the inline element is all about the actual traffic. So the optimization, plan enforcement, provisioning piece happens there, but also the measurements. And really the idea is the best way to understand your subscriber experience is to measure the actual traffic flowing through your network. And the best way to think about this is think about it in terms of bottlenecks. Whenever you have a bottleneck in your network, let's say a congested access point or in-home Wi-Fi issue, you've got a piece of gear that has more data coming in than it can transmit, and it's going to start either buffering those packets, adding latency, and or drop them eventually, creating packet loss. So if you can look at the traffic and figure out if there's latency being added or there's packet loss, you can see exactly what's happening and where. And that's exactly what Preseem does. We look at the TCP layer. We're constantly measuring TCP round trip time from the inline device all the way down into the home. The device sends an ACK back to us. That's that constant path. That's how TCP works. So we can constantly see that entire downstream latency, including the in-home portion, because it's not a ping. It doesn't stop at the CPE. It keeps going beyond that. So you can look at any one subscriber and see if they're getting a good experience based on latency. Same way we look at TCP retransmits, which tells us if there's packet loss. So between those two, you can tell again if any subscriber is having any kind of issue affecting their experience. And then we also, through topology, aggregate that up. So we know what subscribers are on what access points are on what tower, and now you can look at patterns. If all the latencies on an AP are high, you've got a network issue. If only one is high and the rest is low, you've got a subscriber issue. So this information again really helps you truly understand what is happening with the subscriber experience. So I talked a bit about the optimization piece that happens on the inline device as well, and where this comes in is on the provisioning, where you call it provisioning, plan speed enforcement. And so the advantage of something like Preseem over, a typical system, you might have a billing system that's connected directly to your ONT CPEs and configures it to set the plan speeds in there. There's a couple challenges with that. If you have multi-vendor, multi-access network, it adds a lot of complexity because you need, different hooks and integrations to all those systems. And the second problem is um, the shapers that do that actual plan enforcement tend to be very sort of basic. Like they're very simple queues. And when the plan speed is maxed out, whether that's on a CPE or an ONT hits its upload, the experience can become quite poor for the end user. I'm going to talk more in the next slide how we solve that as well. But on the provisioning side, the idea is Preseem does this all as a single point of plan enforcement at the IP layer. So we simply see all the traffic going through. Sonar tells us, hey, here's your subscribers, here's the plan speeds, here's the IP addresses, and Preseem does all the enforcement based on that. We actually don't really care what is downstream, whether it's fixed wireless, fiber, cable, or even DSL. We've seen it all. It just doesn't matter. We see an IP packet and we shape it to the right amount. And so it makes it very easy to add more different kind of infrastructure as well. And so the second point I made before was the experience that happens when somebody maxes out their plan speed. So we have a ton of data, right? We've done a lot of measurements on this. And it turns out that congestion within the plan rate, i.e. somebody maxing out their own plan speed, is one of the biggest causes of a poor experience for the end user. And again, think to that bottleneck concept I explained before. The way most shapers work is you've got a single lane of highway, so to speak, and as soon as you have more traffic coming in than the shaper can transmit, it's going to start buffering those packets and eventually dropping them. So if somebody in a household is doing a big download, your Zoom is going to get affected. Your downloads, sorry, your VoIP is going to start working poorly and things like that. And with Preseem, we solved that problem in a really elegant way. We use FQCoddle behind the scenes. It's based on that. But basically, Preseem automatically classifies flows into either interactive or bulk. So interactive is anything small. Think browsing, VoIP, gaming, things like that. Only a little bit of data. It automatically gets prioritized. No latency, no packet loss. Everything goes straight through. And all the big flows, each one gets its own queue. So let's say you're streaming video or downloads, gaming upgrades, whatever. Um, Having their own queue keeps them nice and separate from each other. But the other big innovation is something called active queue management. And I'm not going to go into too much queuing theory here, but the idea is if you can keep the latency both low and consistent, the end user experience, even when the shaper does kick in, is far better than these huge buffers adding tons of buffer bloat and things like that. So and again, the idea here is not to limit the traffic of the end user in any way. We don't care what they're doing. We simply want to make sure that if they do use older bandwidth, it still feels really fast. We can also do this hierarchically. So if you have, for example, an access point that's overloaded, we can put a shaper on the AP level. And Preseem, because we know so much about the RF side now, it knows the link rates capabilities of the AP. It automatically adjusts that bandwidth as well based on all that data. And we're also working on backhaul and pond shapers. All right, so that was a bit of a high-level overview of Preseem. Let's talk a bit about how different teams can use it in their daily lives, their daily jobs, basically. So first off, the core network operations team. This is really based on, again, the TCP round-trip time latency and the retransmits, latency, buffering, packet loss in your network. So the idea is you can look at this at different levels in a topology. You can look at it at an element level, at a tower level, at different levels like that, right? And so this particular chart shows you, TCP retransmits. And the neat thing here is you can see it go up along with bandwidth. That's not actually supposed to happen because it's a percentage. You want it to be a fairly flat line. So we can see right away here that both of the elements have an elevated retransmit during peak. That tells us something in the network is not keeping up, dropping relatively more packets. In this case, it happened to be a CGNAT issue, but we've seen it being backhauls, overloaded APs, bonding issues, overloaded routers. MikroTiks are notorious if you have one core maxing out. And the idea here is if everything is good, you see a low latency and a nice flat retransmit, you know things are generally running really well in the core. If you see anything like that, you know there's a problem to go hunt for. And again, based on topology, you can further figure out where that problem might be. At the access point layer for fixed wireless, and we have different data for fiber as well, there's really, again, a ton of information to both understand where the problems are, why, as well as quantify what the impact of that is. So we know every access point, what subscribers are on it. It comes up with a daily latency score. So you can simply look at what APs have a high latency to tell you where the problems are. And then if you add up all the subscribers in our tables, you can see the impact of that as well, and sort of quantify your investment and say, this we have this many customers at risk because of a poor quality of experience, and think about is it worth solving and things like that. So the latency tells you where to look, and then all the RF data we have tells you exactly why these problems are happening. And this is something I'm not going to go into great detail on, but again, we pull a lot of information from your fixed wireless gear, like RSSI, modulation, link rates. So if you looked at it, you probably pull it into Preseem, but I think it's the analytics layer on top of it which adds so much value. For every CPE, for example, we give you a very simple RF score, 0 to 10, color coded. If it's red or yellow, you know there's a problem between the AP and the CPE. Even if you know almost nothing about RF, you can tell if there's a problem on that side or not. The access points get a health score, RF score as well. And so if you have, a poor health score and a poor RF, think fix. If you have a poor health score and great RF, think overload. And you can also use our data to figure out what CPs are doing the most damage, so to speak, taking up the most airtime. It's really simple to sort of, again, both figure out where the problems are, quantify them, and then address them as well. On the fiber side, very simple, very similar. Parallel, of course, there's different kind of data, but the idea here is we have different vendors, fiber equipment all in one place. We currently support Atran, Calix, and Ubiquity with more to follow here. But basically, we have everything about your ONTs, your OLTs, and your ponds in one place. For the ONTs, you can see all the light levels, which ponds are on. Is there a common issue? Is there attenuation issue, something like that? You can also see, and I'm just giving a couple examples here. You can see the port speed of the LAN port in the home, for example. So if you can very quickly see, all right, we've got a bunch of ports at 10 megs or 100 megs, but they're on 500 meg plans. That's obviously going to be a problem, right? So that's again an example of pulling all this information together in one place. Lets you figure things like that out very quickly. And yeah, on the pond side, you can both see if ponds are having a QE issue of any kind, as well as find those attenuation issues as well here. And again, it's all in one dashboard in our cloud. And the other thing I think that's neat about this, and again, it's partially integration with Sonar here that we pull this information from, but our data model ties both the subscribers, the QE data, as well as the element data all together. So we have a concept of accounts, your customers, packages, what plan speeds are you selling them, and a service. And a service is what you sell to your customer, but it's also something that it connects that account to the different hardware, whether that's on fixed wireless CPE radio and an access point, or in fiber ONT, PON, and OLT. You can start at any one of those and navigate your way around to figure out how things are connected. So if you have an ONT with a low light level, you can figure what subscriber that is. and vice versa. So this can be used by many teams, but the support team in particular can use this to navigate. Typically, there you would start at an account or a service level, and the first thing they typically do is look at the inline data to see, is there a problem? Let's not get into details just yet, but is data flowing? Look at the bandwidth, look at the usage patterns, and also look at latency is one of the big ones here. So the white line happens to be the subscriber latency. If that is high, there's an issue. That's somewhere a bottleneck to go figure out. In this chart, the yellow line is the network latency. If that is also high, think network issue. You're probably going to escalate it to the networking team. If the yellow line is low, think subscriber issue. It's typically now going to be something related to either an RF issue and fixed wireless, or if not that, in-home Wi-Fi. But you can keep drilling down. We're looking at the elements to figure that out as well. So in cases, for example, a fixed wireless subscriber, we have those very simple scores I mentioned. So if you have, let's say you had a level 1 support engineer that maybe isn't super technical, to really focus on the people skills, they just need to know, is there a problem with the CPE or not? Well, if the RF score is yellow or red, there's an issue. If there's any diagnostic, it'll say in plain English things like interference detected, all kinds of different things are highlighted. If there's any diagnostic, there's an issue, you're probably going to escalate it. If the RF score is great, no diagnostics, things are good on the fixed wireless side, and it's probably an in-home Wi-Fi issue, and you can move there next. So it really reduces unnecessary escalations to the next level up. Training is super easy because it doesn't really matter what kind of fixed wireless gear you have. It's all together, and reduces time to root cause as well here. For fiber, again, it's similar here. You can see light levels over time. We have a 2-year history in that. You can see if there's changes at some point. And again, that port speed in the home to understand what's the connection to the rest of the home look like. Is that low as well? And again, doesn't really matter whether you have Calix or Adtran or Ubiquity. It's all in one place. You don't need to give everybody all kinds of credentials to log into all these systems. There's a nice read-only view with lots of history in Preseem connected to your subscriber account to get all that information out of there. All right. The other one is the sales and marketing team. And so one of the things we heard fairly early on is a number of our customers kept telling us they had some tension between their networking team and the sales and marketing team. And the reason we kept hearing about that was it's the marketing team needs to know where to invest, where to run the marketing campaigns based on capacity. Well, that's something the networking team has to provide. So that's a lot of work. It's also not a lot of work, but it can be a little subjective because some are a little more, aggressive with that. Some are a bit more conservative. And so we kept hearing this sort of back and forth. What Preseem does, for every access point, we know exactly how many subscribers can be added to that AP. It's based on that AP, the users connected to it, their RF conditions and things like that is very specific. It's not based on the marketing data at all. And it gives you one number for everyone. You aggregate it up by tower, and you can very quickly see which areas have lots of capacity still to do marketing in without having to apply or deploy more hardware. And on the flip side, we can tell you which towers are full as well, and where more investments does make sense. Okay, so a little bit about the free trial for those of you who are not familiar with Preseem at all. We try to make this really risk-free and sort of easy. We have 30-day free trial, 30-day money-back guarantee on hardware. It's a very sort of white glove experience. We have a sales engineer walk you through the whole process. Basically, our philosophy is if you like what you see, you're happy, you pay for it. Otherwise, you don't. And yeah, that's the way we've always operated. You can see all of our pricing online. We're very transparent with that. Everything is month to month, and our goal is to keep you happy, not lock you into a long-term contract. All right, so that's it for the Preseem portion here. Thomas, over to you for a bit.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Garrett. So big part of what I'm going to try to do today is get you up to speed on what we've been up to, but also want to kind of reference key use cases for the integration with Preseem with some of the fiber vendor support that they've introduced and that we're in the midst of introducing as well. So if you think about the market challenge when we talk about the tier 3 space, and a lot of our operators, of course, are regionally concentrated ISPs that are deploying a mix of fixed wireless and fiber. There's a lot of platforms out there that were maybe initially developed for ADSL cable or even dial-up that are antiquated, have dated UIs, are not contemporary, are not easy for someone from a non-standard telecommunications background to develop a mastery of. It's also worth saying that there are a lot of platforms out there that are kind of, been put out to pasture, they're end of life. There's not very much in the way of support. So what you're finding are a lot of these folks that are trying to find ways to get off of these tools that have very rigid backends. So major limitation with some of the legacy tools, of course. And a big problem that a lot of operators are trying to solve for is to gain access to equal tools so that they can go firefight against these tier ones that are trying to encroach on their territory. Big thing that we're seeing is a lot of the legacy solutions that were maybe once upon a time developed for ILEX and telephone co-ops are still eliciting an initiation charge or walking in the door price of $50 or even $100,000. Very expensive, priced prohibitively, makes it very, very difficult for an operator to get on board. The other thing that we're also seeing is we're seeing some of these newer entrants in the space that are charging similar fees because they want to fund their development efforts or cover the cost of project management resources because they're taking these as one-off, projects. So what our philosophy is giving every key departmental persona tools that will make their lives better. And what you'll see in this presentation are some of the steps that we're taking to make life easier for folks in outside plant sales and digital marketing, field operations, network operations, and beyond. So when you think about the BSS OSS systems and vendors in the market, it's really a tale of three types of operators. So a lot of the times what you'll see is you'll see some of these legacy operators, they've been out for 20 or 25 years, have very rigid database structures, are obviously on antiquated architecture. Many of these solutions are hosted locally, some even on mainframes. We're talking about platforms that need to be taken down for any major maintenance or upgrades, and in some cases will require you to actually update your appliance in order to be able to take advantage of the next version. Some of them may be on a kernel of Linux, which is no longer supported. So in a lot of cases, you're seeing that some of these platforms are seeing very little in the way of reinvestment in the platform and the roadmap, and they're gradually scaling back on staffing and support as they lose customers. So you're seeing a perfect storm of less novel development, less addressing of bugs, and less people staffing telephone lines in order to respond to routine or complex requests. On the other hand, we're seeing some newer entrants, and some of these newer entrants are a little limited because they have no published API or are very early in their documentation. Many of them don't really even publish a support hotline, have support hours. They have few customers, so they're kind of in that race against revenue and whether or not their funding backers will continue to fund a project that is basically not a profitable venture. To be honest with you, Sonar was in that new entrant category for a long, long time. We fought very hard and have certainly taken the stairs to get out of that. I think years ago we were. But today I'm pleased to say that we're the platform of the present and future, just like a few other folks in the market, credibly. And that accounts for vendors that have obviously invested in the right architecture, hosting on Azure, democratizing a data lake like Snowflake, building the platform with market intent. So a big part of our push moving forward, once upon a time we were an engineering-led organization built off SDKs and APIs. That object and API structure is still there today, but it's more about investing in the appropriate ecosystem partnerships. Preseem with Fiber Electronics, Calix and Adtran. On e-commerce, Atlas Digital, Crowdfiber. The list goes on, making the right decisions on vendors and working directly with vendors to make the integrations work is the new frontier for us and where we're focusing our efforts. So the big thing for us in this stage of our existence is that we want to be relentless about becoming more and more referenceable. In the past, I think a lot of our focus was, getting a lot of customers, getting people on the platform. But nowadays, the key frontier for us is making the right decisions on ecosystem partners and making sure that we're vigorous and about making our customers successful and speaking to that ROI. So when you think about who our platform applies to, well, it's always going to have to apply to CSR and tier one personnel. What we need to do very well is make the solution easy to use for folks that don't necessarily have a standard telecommunications background. It's becoming harder and harder to recruit. People may have worked at restaurants and various areas of the service industry. One of the things that Sonar is going to continue to focus on is making it very easy for a customer service representative to identify things like where service degradation is occurring and making it easier for them to meaningfully troubleshoot where the source of an issue may be affecting a subscriber's experience. We're going to continue making enhancements to our solutions applicability to tier two and network operations teams. So recently we introduced some enhancements for planned and unplanned outage notifications, where you can now notify customers before the start of an outage and at the end of an outage, down to the node and network element, whether that's a PON port or an OLT or a access point or a you know, IDF switch in an MDU. We're going to continue to work on rounding out our edges with outside plant and construction. We've introduced some major enhancements with how we deal with addressing within a fiber construction construct. So being able to take a look at an address, tying an address to outside plant elements like an FAT, tying splice records to an address or a subdivision, making it very easy to tie a customer to service terminals and all outside plant elements like an MST port or anything else. And as you've noticed, we've developed an integration with Vitro fiber mapping. We're going to continue enhancing that integration. And I wouldn't be surprised if you saw integrations with solutions like IQGeo and ArcGIS coming up along the way as well. One of the things that I find interesting when we go to shows is there are tons of folks that are doing feasibility analysis and consulting on engineering and permitting. But one of the things that I've also noticed is that there's nowhere near enough people helping our operators market in their subdivisions through every stage of fiber construction and through every stage of build progress materializing. It's very expensive to build fiber. So one of the things that you're going to see from us beyond, e-commerce integrations, of which we have a few currently with vendors like CrowdFiber and Atlas Digital, and a few custom tailored solutions that we can offer you too, is the ability for you to see more and more tools that will allow you to market to your customers through every stage of construction, whether you're standing up a tower and you have some propagation mapping to kind of help direct your efforts, or you have a firm idea of how many addresses are moving from conduit to drop work, and collecting expressions of interest along the way. We're going to continue to do a better job listening to our customers and their regulatory teams. Billing platforms need to go well beyond the call of BDC filing reports for deployment and subscriber reports. Our customers have requirements that are evolving to 499s. They have hub reporting requirements if they're an ILEC. And they certainly have a variety of grant funding milestones that they need to be able to speak to. USDA CAF2 recipients, CAF2 and RDOF recipients need to report on number of customers that they've connected through census tract parcel data, and be able to speak to what speeds these subscribers are getting as well once they've been connected. On the billing and finance side of things, one of the things that we've recently enhanced is the ability to tailor promotional messaging and customizing invoicing by customer segment. So sometimes some of our operators want to target specific segments of their market with messaging. Some of their customers are on a program that may be winding down, like the ACP program. So with some major enhancements that we've made to invoicing customization, customers will now have the ability to customize promotional messaging, insert material to target a segment of their customer base, and also modify how invoices look and feel. You'll also be seeing some major support for accounting integrations coming down the pipe as part of our roadmap commitments with Sonar Pay, and being able to tie into leading ERPs and accounting platforms in the marketplace. One of the areas where we absolutely needed to make some enhancements was inventory, and how we kind of apply to inventory and warehouse and logistics teams. So you're going to see a major consumable inventory enhancement coming down the pipe, so that we're introducing more unit of measure tracking on consumable inventory. So being able to look at usage markers for fiber reels, and also looking at better ways to kind of distinguish between 188 count fibers and other types of strands. We're going to be really excited about that, and you should see some movement on that in the month of May. From a field operations point of view, one of the things that we're starting to notice based on some of our discussions with some of our customers is, everyone handles workflow differently, especially in a drop work setting. Some people will place a NID and cable through a jumper to an ONT and router as part of one particular workflow. Other people will coil a temporary drop, wait for the ground to thaw, and come back to finish the work. So we need to be more introspective about that feedback, and obviously cast a wider net amongst different operators across areas in order to make sure that we're capturing that and enhancing our field operations module. If you think about what really sets us apart, the new frontier and the new shift for us as a company is we need to do everything to listen to our customers. You're going to see more and more vendor surveys coming out. We want to know which XGS PON vendors you're standardizing on. We want to know which fiber mapping tools are the best, what construction management tools you're using. We want to know what ERPs you are using. because if we start to collect this feedback, we disseminate it, we're going to be able to make more predictive decisions about what we develop and what we prioritize within our work streams. Our people are also a very significant differentiator for us. We've invested a lot in having a large support and development organizations. So you're starting to see a lot more of a cadence in terms of releases that are coming out. We're deploying multiple times a week, and we've invested a lot in our development organization in order to make sure that our customers know they're hitching their wagon to the right solution, and we're developing the platform with a lot more market intent. From a support point of view, we're also hiring a lot of bright folks. So our support people know their way around a database. A lot of them end up maturing in the organization into an implementation role and in a client relations role as well. It's imperative that they have some foundational understanding of the platform and what it can do if they're going to support customers in an implementation, support, or eventually account management capacity. You'll also notice that we don't believe in offshoring or outsourcing any staff. All of our staff is housed in North America. And we've also recently invested a lot more in account management because we understand that a lot of our customers want to make quality of life improvements in their instance. They may acquire another company, introduce a new type of equipment vendor like a Tirana into their network, and need to make sure that they're positioned to success when there's a need for added adoption projects. One of the things that you're going to notice is some major enhancements to architecture. We're going to be beefing up what we're doing with Redis and putting in some better APB monitoring to make instances even quicker. Instances will be quicker. We are scaling the platform to be able to handle 250,000, 500,000 subscribers. Of course, that's our space, right? We're not selling to tier ones like the Windstreams, the Coxes of this world. So our new CTO, Steve Schillingsberg, has done a really good job in a couple quarters of looking under the hood, and you'll see some major enhancements to architecture coming in really by the month of May. So he's been able to put his stamp on the development organization. We're really pleased with the contributions that they've been making. One other thing that I would also say is more rigorous focus on quality assurance and code review and working directly with vendors on all integrations. So we're working directly with Calix on the support cloud integration, which has been released to a few select customers in a beta setting, and directly with Adtran on Mosaic and AOE. So if we want to dive into a little bit more on the integration, of course, one of the things that we've always done well with Preseem is creating that connected tissue between the data in Preseem and the data that actually exists in Sonar. So traditionally, that's meant inventorying a subscriber module and tying that to a access point through this connected device affiliation. So no different concept with fiber. In this case, if you had a Ubiquiti UFiber Loco NT, being able to tie that to a 4-port or 8-port GPON OLT from Ubiquiti would be quite simple. If you are a new customer of ours and you're coming through onboarding and that data exists in Preseem, well, that's going to simplify the lift of getting your network live with us. And the opposite can also be true if you're with us and you're looking to convert over to Preseem. So those connected device affiliations are critical and at the core of our integration, of course, with Preseem, so that we can persistently tie customers to head-end equipment, whether it's an ONT to an OLT or a subscriber module to an access point, and vice versa. We also have those connected device relationships from the network node all the way down to the household. So very excited about that improvement. The other thing that you'll also notice, whenever you've looked at a device in Sonar, sometimes you'll notice that there's just one device responsiveness status. But in some cases, depending on how you've configured the Preseem integration, you'll also see a Preseem responsiveness status. So why is there a difference there? Well, sometimes you may have configured Preseem to flash a warning status depending on saturation occurring at a predetermined moment in the day over repeated thresholds, whether that was between the hours of 6 and 8 o'clock, latency spikes for X number of consecutive days, that triggers an alert. So we're continuing to build that and extend that to fiber, of course. So looking at an ONT, being able to capture device uptime, BIP errors, DB loss levels, RxTX levels, and much more. So recently what we've done is we've enhanced some of our tools for notifications, namely related to planned and unplanned outages. So being able to automate outreach to customers before an outage begins and once it ends. And as a byproduct of that connected device affiliation that we have through that connected tissue with Preseem, what you're seeing in this case is us notifying all subscribers on a Calix E7 chassis and being able to do so down at the PON port as well, so that we're not creating a lot of broadcast pollution and targeting customers that shouldn't be impacted by that warning message. So really the key theme today is the multi-vendor paradigm, right? I mean, operators, for a number of reasons, whether we're talking about fixed wireless networks or GPON or XGS PON networks, have had a variety of vendors that roll into their tech stack. Why is it? Well, in some cases, they just would prefer to go with a value brand like Ubiquiti and spend a little bit less, because there's a variety of other things that they're paying for in a fiber build, right? They need to pay for construction, equipment, bidirectional drills, plows, contractors hitting bedrock with pricing escalators. So that CapEx crunch allows them or forces them to make a decision on maybe going with a value solution. In some other cases, there may be a philosophical change with respect to the vendor of record. So you may have a new CTO that comes in and wants to put their footprint on the company, or maybe there's a change in philosophy where they want to employ two vendors in case they don't want to be overly reliant on one vendor's roadmap or licensing scheme. So we see a lot of that as well. A lot of folks will also observe a change in network architecture. They may go from active Ethernet to GPON, or from GPON to XGS PON. And sometimes, there are some operators that are in economically disadvantaged areas, and they don't have as much of a success rate selling a premium option with premium Wi-Fi and to a customer. So in those cases, they may be confronted with a difficult decision as well. So before I talk about how that the integration solving for that problem, I just want to kind of get you guys up to date on where we are at with fiber provisioning integration. So obviously at this point, and maybe not obviously for some of you, full provisioning interoperability for all Calix SKUs. So integrated RGONTs like the U6X or your GP1100s or 1100Xs fully supported. Our integration with Adtran is in the process of being developed. It's going to be backwards compatible so that it extends to their new orchestration platform, Mosaic 1, but also caters to the legacy AOE platform. Nokia will be the next one directly after Adtran, with integration work slated to be completed by Q4. We are seeing Nokia increasingly enter the tier 3 and regionally concentrated space. Historically, they focused a lot on tier 1 operators. So we've seen a pretty big uprising in feedback from our customers. We've heard you, and we are absolutely going to be prioritizing that after Adtran. Sienna is interesting because they are relatively new on the termination side. They've obviously done very well from a switching, and core routing point of view historically. I mean, they are a $7 billion company. But the truth of the matter is we're starting to see them pop up in a lot of deployments. Their equipment works, and we're staying very close to the market. Again, another indication of what we're doing to try to be more market centric moving forward about our ecosystem partners and the integrations that we're investing in. So if you think about it, you consider this multi-vendor paradigm. Obviously, we have folks that are deploying Ubiquiti U-Fiber equipment. It's great gear, honestly. Zycel equipment, we're seeing some of TP-Link, Dasan Zone, a little bit of Radisys. So it does vary. So one of the advantages of the integration with Preseem at this point, whether you're deploying fixed wireless equipment or fiber equipment, you have that single point of failure, and you don't have people swiveling in and out of 6 or 7 different orchestration platforms. So really, it's all about being vendor agnostic, working very well in a multi-vendor deployment. There's M&A, there's people retrofitting networks. There are several reasons why the multi-vendor paradigm has arisen. And basically, it leads to a much simpler implementation for you when you do go multi-vendor and you run hybrid networks between fixed wireless and fiber. So I think with that, we're good for questions.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Thomas. We got a first question. I think that's for you, actually. The question was, I think it just came in from a recent slide. So for Calix, even the older devices like the 8844Es.
Yeah, so the 844Es are going to be fully supported with Support Cloud, and we're working on how we're looking at CMS. But anything that's come out in the last 5 or 6 years will be fully supported. The 844Es will be limited to managed Wi-Fi initially, but we are looking at what we can do to retrofit with CMS devices. Hopefully that helped address the question.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Okay, nothing's coming up, so let's assume there's no more questions at this point. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening and joining in to this joint webinar. Thomas, thank you so much for a great presentation as well. And there was one question just come in from Jody. I think, oh, there they go. All right, let me back up from all that. Jody has a question. You mentioned customizing invoices. Has that been rolled out yet? I think that's a Sonar question, probably.
It actually has, to be honest with you. So invoicing customization is fully available now. So there's no issue with that whatsoever.
Okay.
Fully supported. Being able to custom billing inserts, promotional messaging, invoicing for specific types of dial tone customers, fully supported.
Yeah. Okay. Next question from Dylan. Do you integrate with 3CX to pull up customers' accounts as the phone rings?
So that's a great question. A lot of our customers have implemented a variety of different PBX systems or UCaaS systems. We're seeing a lot of Dialpad, a lot of 3CX. We're seeing Genesis. At this point, we don't have any native integrations with these vendors, but we can work on a one-off basis on integrations based on your requirements. Some of our customers have done some pretty neat things with UCaaS or call center solutions, proactive pop-ups on accounts, payments via IVR. We could even potentially have you speak to a customer that's done that successfully. So we haven't standardized on any integrations because we're seeing a lot of variance in the market with different phone systems, and it's been hard for us to kind of prioritize one. And we've had our plate full with engineering and fiber mapping integrations, as well as some major upcoming enhancements to modules.
Okay, great. Next question from Peter. What subscriber-specific stats can be pulled back into Sonar?
So I would tell you that DB loss levels, RXTX levels, that type of information we could pull in with relative ease. I mean, really depends. There are some vendors that have common OID or MIB stacks. Ubiquity is a good example of that, right? They've had the same MIB or OID stack for several years, but most of what you would want to capture, RXTX levels, light level readings, we can pull in. So it really just depends on whether we're addressing the question for a fixed wireless network or a fiber network, but there's a common array of data points that we're collecting and graphing in an OID setting.
Yep. Yeah, and I don't know if that question might be related to the portions from Preseem as well. There are a number of things like the access point latency status and things that go back to Sonar. One thing I should add from our side, we recently released an API where all those scores I talked about, CPE scores, AP scores, things like that, are all available through an API there as well. All right, I'll wait a little bit of time again. I've likened this to putting popcorn in the microwave recently, where we got to wait long enough between the pops to say we're done now. So we'll give that a little bit of time again.
Or you're like me, you burn the popcorn and everyone in your household complains about it.
I haven't done that in a long time. All right, probably safe to stop now. We'll try this again. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining in. Thank you, Thomas. And any other questions, of course, anything else either Sonar or us can help with, we're always here.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye.